Hi, this is Rabbi Adam Stein. You can see I'm in front of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church and Cathedral on 10th Street. It's actually right across the street from a Canada Services building. You can see the Canada Federal logo right there. Maybe a bit of a metaphor for the cooperation and kinship that Canada and Ukraine have as much as possible right now. Support coming from Canada and many other countries. Just watching in Parliament yesterday on TV, so many politicians standing up and speaking in support of Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. I have to say I feel a bit of a close kinship, close connection myself, not nearly as close as those who are from Ukraine or born in Ukraine feel. There are over 1.3 million, almost 1.4 million at the 2016 census, people who are born in Ukraine or of Ukrainian descent who live in Canada. So my connection might be not as close as theirs, but my great-grandfather, Frank Stein, I'm named after him. My middle name is Frank. My middle name in Hebrew is Ephraim, just like his. He was born in a small town, 1896, I think, called Izyaslav in Ukraine. Moved with his family a few years after the turn of the century. Eventually gave birth to my grandfather in Chicago. My father was born in Los Angeles, and here I am in Vancouver. I visited this small town, you might say a shtetl, small village in Ukraine called Izyaslav. I got to visit in 2000 in the spring when I was leading Pesach Seders with a small group in a van, driving around to different small Jewish communities, leading Seders on all different days of Pesach. If you were in a small Jewish community and you've been prevented from having Pesach for 75 years by communist rule, it didn't matter what day you were having Pesach, what day you were having a Seder. You were having one perhaps for the first time in decades upon decades. This is a group that was going around under Hillel and the Joint Distribution Committee. We were North Americans spending the year in Jerusalem at Hebrew University, and we met up with Kiev students, part of Hillel there. We went around in groups of 3 Ukrainians and 3 North Americans. Rabbi Blumen did the same thing 2 years later in 2002. I want to say there's so many numbers flowing through my head. 1 million Russian Jews probably still in Russia. I think 43,000 core Ukrainian Jews in Ukraine, but add up all those who are maybe married to Jews, or they have a Jewish parent or a Jewish grandparent. Those who qualify for the law of return in Israel are about 200,000 if you have a Jewish grandparent. And Israel is readying and already started to welcome immigrants. I just read they're loosening up the rules a bit, allowing people who, sorry for the truck, qualify for the law of return to come even if they're not accompanied by their Jewish relative. Many people who are male and under the age of 60 cannot even leave. They're not being allowed to leave by the Ukrainian government. Usually that wouldn't be allowed to come in. Israel, I think, is trying to welcome as many as possible. I want to say that we're reading in this week's Parshat Pekudei. We're still reading about the tabernacle in the wilderness and traveling around, and God's presence would be felt and seen by the Israelites during the daytime as a cloud above the tabernacle, and during the nighttime as a pillar of fire above the tabernacle, so they could have some comfort and feel God's presence around them. The Italian commentator Sforno, Rabbi Infeld loves to quote him, he's a great commentator, and he asked why sometimes the place they were going to was mentioned, sometimes the place they were coming from was mentioned in the Torah, about the different journeys that the people had. And he says, well, sometimes leaving their place of origin was difficult, and sometimes arriving at their place of objective, the place they were going to, was difficult. Sometimes it was difficult either way. Certainly for Ukrainians of whatever religious background, Jewish, Christian, whatever religion, whatever cultural background, family background, leaving is so hard right now. But for so many of them, it's the only thing they can do. And arriving in a new place, that's hard too. We can only pray and wish, support, as the signs behind me say that are in the lawn over there. Maybe donate to organizations that are helping, and hope that the killing and the shelling and the attacks will end as soon as possible. Shabbat Shalom.